very first episode of the Swift department. Now, we're going to be focusing on the Tortured Poets department as our first Taylor Swift album. I think it's really relevant to start there.
Absolutely. I mean, it inspired us doing this in the first place, so we've got to start there.
We were wondering, how do we tackle this? How do we break down episode by episode? Do we do it by song? But once we saw the physical album and the poem that accompanied the Tortured Poets department, it was just clear to us that we're not going to jump straight into the songs. We need to preface it all by analysing this poem, because...
I mean, it gives context to everything. You can't fully understand the album without reading that poem.
And if you were only listening on Spotify and Apple, how we were initially, you wouldn't know the poem existed unless you were on TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah.
And the poem is everything, I feel.
Well, I mean, it is named the summary poem, basically, by Taylor Swift. So, yeah, we've got to start with the summary.
I remember when you called me that morning. I'd come out of Pilates and I had all these voice notes, and you said, "Oh my God."
I still feel like that.
But you said there's more.
Yeah.
And you sent me the screenshot of the poem, and...
I know. Mind blown moment.
But so how we thought we'd tackle it was, you're going to read the poem to begin with.
Yeah.
And then we're going to head back to the top and talk about it.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Yeah.
And the thoughts that we've had. Right?
Totally. And then, yeah, we'll see where to from there. But let's start there. Let's start with the summary that gives us context to every song and how the lens. It's the lens, right? It's the lens that we'll be able to look through.
That's so poetic. No, honestly, that is.
It's the lens.
To be honest, I feel, because we spoke so much as soon as we were listening to songs, voice noting each other, I felt that we were pretty onto it from the get-go. And I feel that the poem solidified our thoughts.
I know what you're saying.
I think, let's not cut ourselves short there. We were pretty onto it.
Yeah.
Even though we were shook by what we thought the album would be about.
Yeah.
But we were pretty onto it.
Totally.
Okay,
all right, should we get into it?
Let's get onto it.
Yeah, let's get onto it.
Into it, not onto it.
Into it, onto it, under it. Let's go. Okay. So I've got to get into the zone. I've got to get into the Taylor Swift zone, which is impossible.
If anyone's to do this, it's you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So it says here, the Tortured Poets Department Prologue Summary Poem by Taylor Swift. At this hearing, I stand before my fellow members of the Tortured Poets Department with a summary of my findings, a debrief, a detailed rewinding, for the purpose of warning, for the sake of reminding. As you might all unfortunately recall, I had been struck with a case of a restricted humanity, which explains my plea here today of temporary insanity. You see, the pendulum swings, oh, the chaos it brings, leads cage beasts to the most curious things. Lovers spend years denying what's ill-fated, resentment rotting away galaxies we created. Stars placed and glued meticulously by hand next to the ceiling fan. Tried wishing on comets, tried dimming the shine, tried to orbit his planet. Some stars never aligned. And in one conversation, I tore down the whole sky. Spring sprung forth with dazzling freedom hues, then a crash from the skylight, bursting through. Something old, someone hallowed, who told me he could be brand new. And so I was out of the oven and into the microwave, out of the slammer and into the tidal wave. How gallant to save the empress from her gilded tower, swinging a sword he could barely lift. But loneliness struck at that fateful hour, low-hanging fruit on his wine-stained lips. He never even scratched the surface of me. None of them did. In summation, it was not a love affair. I screamed while bringing my fists to my coffee-ringed desk. It was a mutual manic phase. It was self-harm. It was house, then cardiac arrest. A smirk creeps onto the poet's face, because it's the worst men that I write best. And so I enter into evidence my tarnished coat of arms, my muses acquired like bruises, my talismans and charms, the tick, tick, tick of love bombs, my veins of pitch black ink. All's fair in love and poetry. Sincerely, the chairman of the Tortured Poets Department.
Wow, you did that so well. I had goosebumps throughout that. I had chicken skin. It was like...
Chicken skin.
That's what the French call it. Wow, that is...
Right?
We already thought she was an amazing lyricist and writer, but that just made me feel...
Well, I feel like...
heartbroken.
Yeah. When you read that poem, it's like, wow, okay, I basically get everything.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why do you think that she needed to put that as part of the album? Like, release that with the album? Why? She didn't need to. She could have just released the album, so why did she put that in there?
Well, I mean, she says it at the start of the poem, right? She literally says, if we're going to get into it right away...
Why not?
Why not? That's why we're here, right? A debrief, a detailed rewinding for the purpose of warning, for the sake of reminding.
It's for her.
It's for her. It's so that she makes sure that she never makes this mistake again, falling into old habits. She wants to remind herself of the red flags of these relationships that honestly just have sucked the life out of her, really. And she's through it. But she never wants to forget how she felt because she never wants to be back there. That's why I think it.
God, she would have felt so much.
I mean, she's a feeler, to say the least.
She is a feeler.
Yeah. Okay, so the next bit. As you might all unfortunately recall...
I love that she says it like that. As you know, as if we're her close friends sort of thing.
I know.
Like, as you might recall, this happened to me. It's like,
exactly.
yeah, we do. We know.
We know.
We know.
We know as much as you will, but now we know more.
Yeah.
I had been struck with the case of restricted humanity, which explains my plea here today of temporary insanity. I'm not going to lie, I had to Google what restricted humanity really was. Like, what did she mean by that? So I Googled it. I don't think I really got that much further, but what do you think?
Well, I would just assume not living life to its fullest.
Yeah.
I would take that as.
Well, I was just...
Like some basic human needs are restricted. I don't know. That's not groundbreaking, but that's what I thought. Like, maybe a human need, in my eyes, is love. So maybe she's talking,
Well, I was saying here, like, restricted humanity, she's not fully herself.
Yeah.
She's not being her normal human self. So she's not thinking. She doesn't have all of the cylinders firing. Like, maybe only love is speaking, or maybe only fear was speaking, or whatever it is. But she wasn't...
fear was speaking.
She wasn't using her whole entire brain and heart to, like, make decisions. Yeah. She was restricted for whatever reason.
So well said.
Parts of her were not switched on. And it's temporary because she's clearly writing this poem, like, saying that she's thinking clearly now. So you best believe her right now.
Yeah, and we do.
Yeah, of course we do. You see the pendulum swings, oh, the chaos it brings.
I love that.
Love it. Leads caged beats to do the most curious things.
And she's spot on there. Mm-hmm. We all behave in crazed ways when we are feeling a certain way.
Totally.
Or desperate in some aspect. Yeah, that's so spot on. My note that I have here... Mm-hmm. So the pendulum swings. Okay, I'm just going to read what my note was. I don't know what state I was in when I wrote this. I said, towards the end, obviously she was bored in her relationship. We all know that. Mm-hmm. Bejeweled.
But we know that now.
We know that now. But she would have been in search for anything that made her feel something.
Totally.
As chaotic as that may be, at least it made her feel something more than what she did when she was with Joe.
Yeah. 100%. The pendulum, if you think about that literally, it goes from one extreme
to the
other. And that's exactly what you said. Her going from Joe, which was from one extreme, being bored, not feeling anything, to Maddie, which was basically being with him, would have felt like going a million miles an hour. obviously she's referring to herself as the beast. For her, Maddie brought the chaos, which made her kind of act outside of how she usually would act. But she was just searching, like you said, for anything to make her feel something, and that's the relationship she fell into.
Not that we saw her act out of character at all in the public eye, but maybe she was in her private life. Like maybe she was being slightly irrational, or maybe she had a bit of an anxious attachment to him, or who knows what. But we didn't see any of that. But maybe her family and friends witnessed that, and she felt that she was behaving erratically at the time.
Well, I feel like that's, that's kind of what she's saying. She's calling herself a caged beast.
Oh, yeah, you're so right.
To do the most curious things. So I feel like you're spot on there. You are. I feel like you're spot on. Like, that's clearly, she realizes on reflection. Like,
my behaviour was...
It wasn't usual for her, for sure. Lovers spend years denying what's ill-fated, resentment rotting away, galaxies we created.
Honestly, I had notes about this.
Okay, so much. Do you want me to stop there?
Yeah,
okay,
I want to stop there. I had notes about resentment. Because we knew from Midnights, we're going to dive into Midnights at a later thing. But I just think everyone should know that. Don't worry, that's coming as well.
Yeah.
Midnights. I could feel that he had resentment through that album. By how she spoke about him, an anti-hero and all of these things.
Totally.
And just thinking Taylor Swift, Joe Alwyn, like there would be silent resentment there. So when she brought that up, I was like, 100% Taylor. I know, I can imagine. What does Esther Perel say about resentment? How like it is one of the main things that kills relationships. If you cannot get over it, as soon as it enters, and if you can't get over it, your relationship is, well, ill-fated, as Taylor says.
Yeah.
Like it's such a big thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I feel like he would have been a massive stonewaller. You know how the Gottmans say that?
The different behavioural styles and relationships.
Yeah, he'd be a massive stonewaller, and I feel she would be like us where we want to talk about things straight away and he wouldn't.
And let's face it.
Okay, that's not talking about resentment. I've gone off on a little tangent.
No. But I feel like it's on both parts there. She would have resentment towards him as well, feeling like, why do you not understand me, or why can't you be there for me, why can't you show up for me? Maybe we're surmising a little bit here, but that's how it feels this album is saying, even prior as Midnights as well, is that, hey, why do I have to dull my sparkle? Which I think she says the next lines, which we should...
Okay, let's just keep going. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, you're right.
Stars placed and glued meticulously by hand next to the ceiling fan. Tried wishing on comets, tried dimming the shine, tried to orbit his planet. Some stars never align.
That's so devastating.
So I said, obviously, this is about Joe, specifically referring to Lovers, because we all know that album was written about him, or most of it anyway. In my feelings is that they spent years together trying to salvage the relationship, but clearly knew deep down that it wasn't going to work. Resentment rotted away, I think, both ways. He had resentment towards her. She's incredible. She's so famous. She's so mainstream. And she's everywhere. And he's this actor that's not quite famous, but really, in comparison to her, no.
Like, he can get away going on the tube and only, like, a couple of people recognising him, where Taylor can't leave without multiple security guards.
Exactly. And the thing that I always think, it's so true, and I don't know if Esther said it or what relationship person said it, but sometimes the thing that you love about that person is the thing that you end up hating at the start of the relationship.
Is that true?
Yeah. Because the thing that gets on your nerves. The person that's a really, really jokey, like towards the end of the relationship, just like, oh, can you be fucking serious, mate?
Really?
Yeah. It's the same thing for her. I feel like she was just like, oh, he doesn't care who I am. He doesn't care. I love that. He doesn't care. It's like, actually, can you fucking give a shit who I am?
That is 100%, I think, how she felt.
Yeah. For Joe, it's like,
I'm the best thing at this party.
Correct. Yeah. And I feel like for Joe, he would have loved that he got the shiny jewel at the start, you know, but then that jewel
it was too shiny
and it made him feel shit.
Oh,
yeah.
God. You might fall for someone because they're so nice, and then in the end, you're
just like, actually, you're judging me. You're making me feel so judged because you're too nice and you don't have boundaries and you need to stick up for yourself. Yeah.
I feel like the rug's been pulled out from underneath me with that comment.
But it's often, yeah, so it's like, you know, just...
Have you found that?
In my relationship?
Not obviously with your current husband,
Oh,
but...
I mean, I'm sure I found it with Shane as well.
Or just with anything. Does that work for friendships as well?
Totally. Sometimes the thing that you can fall in love with, and but it's also what can also save the relationship as well sometimes, because you can be like, hey, this is also the reason why I fell in love with you. It's not all bad.
Oh, God, that's lovely. But also sad.
So, yeah, I guess in terms of, again, she tried everything. In her mind, obviously we're only hearing one side of the story here, but in her mind, she tried everything. Dimming herself so that she was probably, you know, not Taylor Swift, going along with whatever he wanted, orbiting his world, moving to London, spending all of her time
Not
there.
being too big.
Not being too big, trying to make herself smaller, trying to make herself not so shiny, just so that he felt more comfortable. And it's like you end up losing yourself. But not only do you end up losing yourself, it still doesn't work. And that's what she's saying. I tried everything. I would have done anything. But it still didn't work regardless.
God.
How exhausting.
And in one conversation, I tore down the whole sky. I want to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. Basically,
what was that conversation?
She finally had a fuck enough.
Because I feel like he, as a stonewaller, I'm just creating this theory that he's
this
a
is what we're
stonewaller.
here for. You create
She
that.
would have to have the conversation if he's not going to do it. In the story I've created in my head, he was travelling away for movies. He would leave instead of having these conversations.
Sorry to all the Brit listeners out there, but, you know...
Oh, Joe could be a lovely person. I'm not saying Joe's horrible or anything, but some people just aren't meant to be together.
I was about to say something mean about the Brits. I feel like often they, you know, stiff up a lip, you know, shy away from like tough, you know, they're not in touch with their emotions and stuff. That's just the culture. We're very, very stereotypy here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And I can agree with that because I have, one, lived in the UK for an extended amount of time, and two, my last two partners were English. So
yeah,
I think I have good grounds to stand on there.
And so do you agree or no?
Yes,
not as
but
in
there
touch
are
with their emotions. Not as in touch with their emotions.
Men are we talking about?
Of course.
Yeah.
In a relationship.
That I have found, yes, but I think that obviously there are exceptions
We're generalising.
to that rule.
Yeah, we're absolutely generalising. It doesn't mean that everyone is like that.
No, but I find that, yes.
Right. So,
right.
Spring sprung forth.
Wait. I have one comment to say.
Yeah.
And in one conversation, I tore down the whole sky. My note was, when was this conversation? I want to know when it was. Was it after she wrote, "You're losing me"?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think it was after. I think she said it in the song, and that gave her courage to say it to him.
I mean, that would be extremely poetic if that was how it went down.
I think it was. Anyway.
I mean, one thing I do think that we need to acknowledge with hearing her say that is that it's pretty well 100% confirmed that she ended it. Because she's saying in one conversation, I tore down the whole sky. She's basically saying it was her decision.
Yeah.
Even though, obviously, it sounds like he had done many things that forced her to make that decision.
Yeah.
It was still her pulling that trigger at the end of the day. She tore it all down, you know?
That's so hard to do.
She had enough, you know?
Okay, let's continue.
Spring sprung forth with dazzling freedom hues, then a crash from the skylight, bursting through. Something old, someone hallowed, who told me he could be brand new.
Okay, stop there.
Introduction to Matthew Healy.
Was this, she's talking of spring, is this spring 2022 or spring 2023? Because we don't know when her and Joe broke up. They could have been broken up for a year before we all found out.
Or overlapping and not broken up yet.
Do you reckon?
No,
yeah.
maybe.
Bejeweled.
Exactly. I think it was prior.
So you think it's spring 2023?
I think so.
When is spring? Is she talking about spring in England or spring in... Oh, it's the same. Lol. We're in the southern hemisphere here. Just FYI, if you can't tell from our accents, we are in Australia.
Yeah.
So spring, which would be right now. So it would be May. No, it would be
Yes.
April, May.
Yes.
April.
Yeah.
Wow, and that's so wow. I think that they would have been split up for a while, but just without saying it. They both knew, but no one had verbalized it. Yeah. Okay. So we're settling.
Yeah.
Spring 2023. Continue.
I think so. Was it 2023?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess basically as soon as it ended, she's gone with Maddie. I feel like that's also what she's saying.
And can I just say, that's okay.
No judgment here, sister.
No judgment. That is okay. Let's just let go of that judgment.
I mean, who's judging?
I think because I've been in that position and I was
You talk to it, sister.
My harshest critic. I had to do lots of work on that, talking to myself, you know. So yeah, sorry, I'm talking. Anyway, let's continue. Continue. I'm getting hot and sweaty.
From one homie hopper to another.
Homie hopper, please.
Have you not heard that story?
No.
It's like
homie hopper.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah, so again, it's basically confirming that she definitely went from, I guess, one to another. Whether there's overlap, you know.
Who gives a shit?
Exactly. Exactly. Grey area, be gone. We don't care.
We don't care. Yeah. Life is life. Okay.
Something old, so old friend. Someone hallowed.
Something old.
Yeah.
Old friend.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
An old friend, that's what I think. Something
They've known
old.
each other for 10 years.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, how did that skip my mind?
Or old friend or old flame, I wrote down. Like whether they were actually together before or whether they were just an old friend.
I think they may have hooked up briefly. Anyway.
Someone hallowed who told me he could be brand new. So someone who's special, who's reformed, basically. Also, so she thought.
Yeah.
And so he claimed.
Yeah.
And so I was out of the oven and into the microwave.
Absolutely brilliant.
I know.
I know exactly what she's talking about.
Totally. Out of the slammer and into a tidal wave. How gallant to save the Empress from her gilded tower, swinging a sword he could barely lift.
I've got one note on that, and
Go
it's
on.
ouch. Because swinging a sword he could barely lift.
Yeah, talked a big game and clearly didn't live up to any of it.
Can we just go back to out of the slammer? Because obviously Joe Slammer is a motif for her relationship with Joe. She felt like she was in prison, whatever.
Yeah.
Into a tidal wave. That's probably what Maddie's love felt like.
Absolutely. Correct. And both are horrific. One's prison, one's suffocation of water. Both are bad. But she's just gone from, again, pendulum swing, one extreme to another. But loneliness struck at that fateful hour, low-hanging fruit on his wine-stained lips. I had some stuff about this that I was a little bit confused on, wanting to hear your thoughts.
On what?
This
on the wine-stained lips.
Not specific. Loneliness struck at that fateful hour.
So what was...
Low-hanging fruit on his wine-stained lips.
Okay, so she felt... This is how I'm just literally...
Can I ask the question first?
Okay.
No, you go.
Okay, so this is my thoughts coming through my mouth just as they're happening.
Okay.
So, but loneliness struck. So she was feeling lonely with Maddie, right?
Maybe.
At that fateful hour. What was that?
Yeah.
When she shouldn't be feeling lonely, she felt lonely. You know, once I felt that in a relationship and I actually Googled. That's how desperate I was. Can you feel lonely in a relationship?
Yeah.
That's depressing, isn't it? But because I didn't think that was at all possible. And
I think
thought,
that's why it hurts so much, is because you shouldn't.
Yeah. So maybe that's what she was feeling with him. She was, I don't know, but low-hanging fruit on his wine-stained lips. Another wine reference, very maroon here. I don't know, low-hanging fruit and easy. Not saying Taylor's easy, but like they'd had a previous relationship.
Well, these were my two individual thoughts that I couldn't figure out.
Why are you letting me here drown and you've got thoughts on it and you're like, let's just see what you think, and I'm drowning over here and you've got these PhD level thoughts.
No.
Okay, please share.
No, trust.
Please throw me a life raft.
So when I was hearing this, I was like, capitals, did he cheat? Two options. Okay? This is the first one I'm going with. She is the low-hanging fruit, meaning she was very vulnerable and he got her at a vulnerable time in her life coming out of that relationship when she was feeling really low. One option. Or two, a random girl when he was drunk who meant nothing.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, she was a low-hanging fruit. She just happened to fucking be at the bar when he was drunk and he cheated on her. She was the low-hanging fruit while he was drunk because the red stained lips. He was drunk, he was drinking. Which one is it? Is she it? Or is the girl that he cheated on? I don't know.
So you say this to me quite a bit, and I'm going to repeat it back to you, this phrase. Both can exist. Both can be right and both can exist.
Yeah.
I think they're both right. She was low-hanging fruit because...
Meaning, like, he cheated with a girl who was low-hanging fruit and she was also low-hanging fruit?
Yes, because
right,
people pick their prey.
Totally.
But we'll get into that further with the songs, but where that's coming from.
I feel like she might have meant one or the other, though. Or maybe she was lonely. He was meant to come home to her and she didn't. She was really lonely.
Fuck, I felt that.
Yeah, he was meant to come home and was meant to be there. She all of a sudden felt really lonely. And in that same hour, she felt exactly what was going on. Something was going on. That's why she felt lonely. He was cheating.
Because you always know.
Low-hanging fruit on his wine-stained lips. Just some random girl that was in the bar.
I think we settle on that because I think you're right.
Yeah. I mean...
We'll only know if we ask her. Okay. We will ask her in the future.
If you've got other options, like, please send them through.
Oh, yeah. How do they do that? Do they just comment?
We'll figure out that later.
Yeah, but I want to hear everyone's opinions on that.
Yeah.
Because that line, honestly, I just skipped through it previously, but now you've brought it up to me. I'm going to go on a real deep dive on TikTok.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Okay, so he never even scratched the surface of me. None of them did.
Ouch.
Ouch. After a fucking 6-year-long relationship with Joe and he didn't even scratch the... Like, that's gotta hurt. Bro, what were you doing? Anyway.
Yeah, but it takes two people.
Totally.
I'm trying to be really level-headed here.
Okay, you can be that person.
It's very unlike me, but...
Taylor, if you're listening, it was me on your side.
I'm on Taylor's side, please.
No, you're being level-headed. Basically, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory what that sentence means. It was all about them. It was none about her. Both of the relationships.
Or she doesn't feel completely understood by any of them.
Yeah, because I think she doesn't feel understood by them because it was always about them. Like, she was always servicing their needs fantasies, dreams.
Constantly.
You know, she was building them up. Nobody was there building her up.
You know what? That is probably right because she has said in the past the fact that she had people-pleasing tendencies.
Exactly.
And always wanted the applause. And people who have people-pleasing tendencies tend to do that.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm raising my hand there, but you tend to service the other person.
And she's also claimed to be an empath, and that's completely empathetic to just be feeling somebody else's needs and be like, no, I'll just put myself aside. It's fine. Like, what do you need? You're going through something. I'll be there for you.
And I'll wait till you've gone through that, and then you're going to be there for me.
Correct.
Okay.
In summation, it was not a love affair. I screamed while bringing my fists to my coffee ring-stained desk. It was a mutual manic phase.
So the media was going out saying, like, it was
for
an
me,
affair.
I've written there, goosebumps. I mean, like, just the way that she prefaces that, it kind of also...
That has Maddie's back a bit.
I don't know.
I just burped. She said it was mutual.
Well, yeah, true. But she's not necessarily having his back. She's just saying, I was crazy too.
Yeah. And I think she's also shouting out because there was so many articles of her saying, of everyone saying, this is a rebound. Look at her, what a classic rebound. And I remember thinking at the time that maybe it is, but just let her have it.
Yeah.
Who cares? Everyone serves their purpose. Mm-hmm. And she's saying it wasn't.
They were both, she was obviously mutually manic phase, meaning it's like they were both manic and out of their minds. I feel like she's explaining the relationship, not even just Maddie, but Joe there, because it's saying manic. If somebody is manic, often they're bipolar. And what comes along with manic is major depression. That's why the bipolar.
Really?
So major depression and manic phase. Joe was the major depression and Maddie was the manic phase.
So you're saying it was both?
Well, yeah. She's explaining that the relationship that she had, one extreme to the other, like that whole episode of her life, that whole thing, it was a total bipolar episode. It was a really long one.
Shit.
But it's interesting.
Very pendulum-like. Very
and
pendulum-like.
Also exactly. And the very interesting about bipolar is often the major depression lasts longer and the manic phase is short.
No.
Yeah, the manic phase is shorter and the major depression phase is a lot longer. Usually, it's also seasonal. A lot of the time, manic is experienced in summer.
No.
Yes.
Why? This is something you wanted to tell me earlier, but you didn't.
No, it's actually just come to me. I'm not kidding. I've remembered that it was seasonal.
Can we just say the reason I'm not coming at this from a very scientific point of view is because Alice is trained in this. Okay, so she's just a wealth of knowledge. Absolute wealth of knowledge, and I find it so interesting. Please continue.
Thanks for... Like I said, we've known each other through like she's one of my biggest cheerleaders.
I am.
So yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So the major depressive stage, often in bipolar, is a really long, and then the manic phase is quite.
And
short
we're not
when
saying
you're having
anyone's bipolar. We're just saying she's using that.
Yes, as a way to express exactly what she was experiencing.
Shit.
Those two men were a state of bipolar for her. She's not saying that they have that. That was just her experience. That's what she went through.
Wow.
Yeah, like self-harm.
Oh my God.
Maddie was a form of self-harm as she wanted to feel something, as Joe made her feel nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was self-harm. It was house and cardiac arrest. That, for me, I think I've said this to you already when I was doing my voice notes and I was that line seems so freaking simple, but oh my God, it is amazing. It says everything. It was house, then cardiac arrest.
I think it's my favourite line in the poem.
It's so good.
It says so much.
Both will kill you. Your heart not going fast, your heart going a million miles an hour. None of it's stable. None of it's sustainable. You cannot live like that.
No. Wow, this pendulum. Keep going.
A smirk creeps onto the poet's face because it's the worst men that I write best. Like, that's
Ouch, again.
And it's also such a nod to like the shit that people say about her. You only wrote about guys. It's just like, well, it's the worst men that I write best. Like, she's basically kind of saying like, yeah, of course I'm going to write about this shit. Like, and also you give me shit about this all the time. I am going to write about it.
God, I wish people would just give her a break with that. Honestly.
It is a bit vengeful, but it's a total nod to it, which I think is funny. And I also feel like because it's the worst men that I write best, we can agree that there's way more songs about Maddie on that album.
Listen.
So
majority of them about Maddie.
Yeah.
There's more songs about that are vague and about the public or her audience or about other things than there are about Joe. So, yeah, majority of it is about Maddie.
But with that line, because it's the worst men that I write best, she's saying Maddie was worse for her. Because she wrote about him more.
I know.
You know? And so I enter into evidence my tarnished coat of arms, my muses, quiet like bruises, probably my second favourite line.
I love that too.
My talismans and charms, the tick, tick, tick of love bombs.
I love that line. I
So
love that
good.
line. That sounds very narcissistic to
I
me.
literally said so poetic. Incredible. Yeah, this is basically presenting the album to us, describing what she has included in her evidence. So the evidence is the album.
Yeah.
The tick, tick, tick of love bombs, I totally agree. Also said narcissist trait. My veins are pitch black ink. Songs that are basically just oozing out of her.
That's her blood.
Yeah.
She's writing with her blood, essentially.
Exactly. It's oozing out of her. It's in her being. Remember she said that, didn't she say that when she was speaking about, I think it was like Live or something, and she said, this album just, I couldn't stop writing.
It flooded out of her.
Yeah, exactly. It just kept going and going. And basically we're here for it. Every single little drop.
I honestly feel that this album could be one of my favourite albums.
Oh, it is. I can say it clearly right now. It is my favourite album.
I honestly cannot remember my life before this album. Because it's become the soundtrack to my life.
I know, which is quite dark. Are you okay?
No, you know I love sad songs.
I know. We want to be moved. We want
to feel something.
Exactly. And God, she's made us feel. Totally.
But not all of them are sad. Some of them are uplifting. Anyway, so do we need to say anything else further on this poem other than if you haven't read it, get
Please.
a copy of it on your phone or
Yeah.
buy her album and
All's
get it.
fair in love and poetry.
Oh my
Sincerely, the chairman of the Tortured Department. Yeah.
It's so good.
So good.
Thank
We
you,
love it.
Taylor, for including that in the
That
album.
was way longer than I thought we even needed to speak on that. But seriously, there was just so much to say. So many little...
Like Taylor, it just came out of us.
It did.
And, yeah.
In summary of her summary.
Summarising the summary.
The things that we can take away from this is most of the album is about Maddie. That she ended it with Joe, and it was a very quick, whenever it was, we can't confirm, but it was a quick from one to another with Maddie, from one extreme to another, and as quickly as it started, it was snuffed out.
And a big thing, I think...
By Maddie's fault.
By Maddie. And another big thing is that we picked up from this is that she's completely aware. She has the awareness of everything that happened.
Yeah, she knows.
She's aware. She knows.
And she's trying to tell us and herself, hey, this is where I went wrong. Yes, I was crazy, but hey, I have learned. I've gone through it. I've learned from it. I don't want to talk about it again, but this is how I'll remember it. And so I'll never make that mistake again.
God, you really held that episode up. And I'm here for it.
We couldn't have done it without each other.
Okay, so...
Alan G's version, babe.
Let's sign off here, and then we're going to get started with the album. And, yeah. I don't need to say it anymore. I'm just going to be quiet. Okay, should we say au revoir?
Au revoir.
Au revoir. A tutti.